Welcome to the HC Leadership Podcast, forged in fire, led with purpose, formerly known as the Heat of Command. We're here to explore what it takes to lead courageously authentic. From the fireground, battlefield, ballfield, classroom, or boardroom, we bring you real conversations to inspire, challenge, and drive change. Here are your hosts, Kyle Matusik and me, Kerry Henderson. Welcome back to another episode of HC Leadership Podcast. And you probably also listened to us back when we were the Heat of Command, Mastering the Art of Fire Service Leadership. But we are all things and all people now, and we are so happy to expand our audience and everyone that has started tuning in since we've rebranded and everyone that has stuck with us through all of this mess and all of our conversations. We're so happy that you continue listening with us. And Kyle and I, we get a lot of questions about how we prepare and how we outline our episodes and how we structure we used to do seasons and uh, just to be very authentic and upfront, we don't. We get on here and we want to be just off the cuff. It comes more naturally to both Kyle and I think it makes it a little bit more relevant because we end up talking about stuff. Sometimes it's more current event to us or a little bit more recent in our history, and it just works for us. And I know that some other podcasters script out and they have seasons worth of stuff and they forecast, and I love that for them. That's just not how Kyle and I currently are. Maybe one day we will be that way. So we generally, maybe we'll text during the day. Maybe we hop on before we hit record and we just chit chat about what we've had going on in our lives the last week or so, what's been going on in the world. And sometimes that spawns some ideas for us. And sometimes it's stuff going on in our, close circle. But today I was thinking, we have really hit some tough leadership topics pretty like consistently. We've covered culture a lot, we've covered empathy a lot, we've covered authenticity a lot, and all of those things. And I was thinking about some of the really great podcasters that I listen to and great speakers that I listen to. And a lot of their episodes sometimes are just about life because there's more to being a leader and there's more to being a human being and an employee and a spouse and a parent than just your leadership role. And I think that's what makes up your leadership role. We can help you in all of those niche little leadership things, but I think too, it's a lot of what you do on a day-to-day basis, just as a human. So I wanted to talk today just about life stuff. And for me, one thing that I struggle with sometimes is how to be in a good mood during the day and how to, when something sets you off first thing in the morning or something goes wrong in the first thing in the morning, how do you recover from that? So especially if you're going to work that day, because this, our podcast is generally geared towards work stuff. So how do you recover from that? And what are some strategies that we use or have found worked or don't work? And, we're just going to talk about out loud about that because I'm in the season of my life, I'm 45, where I get a little irritable as a woman. I'll be honest about that because I hope we have some female listeners that are also in that season of their life. So I want to be less irritable, especially with my coworkers, especially with my family. And so what are some tips and tricks that Kyle and I have found that we've seen work for others or work for ourselves?
Yeah, thinking about this, we've all had those mornings, and I definitely have had those mornings. And you go through seasons sometimes where it's more times than not where you wake up and that alarm just pisses you off right away. You go make your coffee, it spills all over the place, and you just wake up heavy. Your mind's racing already. These lists are being in your mind, and you're like 5 minutes into the day. Right? It's like life's already ahead of you before you even started. And sometimes that just can take full control of us and set us on a warpath for that day that is going to end up being an extremely miserable day. So it's kind of like looking at these things and when it's happening, are we aware of it? And how can we create a better awareness of when our days start like that? And then how can we recover from that? And then we'll talk about some things to how to recover from that. And our days could start bad from the second you wake up, to an hour after you wake up, something with the kids, school, weather, whatever. Something just goes awry, doesn't go according to plan. I think that's one of the most interesting things as human beings. We're all very predictable. We like our routines, especially the older you get. And when your routine goes sideways right away, it could throw off an entire day. I wake up rather early, a little earlier this morning at 3 a.m., but usually I'm up about 4:30. And like, if my wife wakes up at like 5, I'm like, what are you doing? No, like, this is not how I start my day. This can't happen yet. Like, I need my time, so it's, but then further, we could start our day off good. And then all of a sudden you step into work, or you step into that activity you're going to, you step into the gym, or your church or your organization, and something just sets you off, right? And something goes the wrong way. You come into work and your list is 3 pages long, and it's starting off with a meeting that's going to get everybody nowhere, right? You already know how that's going to be. Or you go into an organization and, the team's not all there or not ready to go, whatever the case may be. And that can set you on a spiral as well. Sometimes it's so easy, we can latch on to certain things that happen at certain points, and we can let that determine the rest of our day. And I think the first step to all of it is just that awareness to it all, of when it happens, and then maybe why. Why is this happening? And is it personal? Is it the professional side? Is it the workplace? Where's this coming from? And then being able to move on. Like I said, this happens a lot. For me, it's like my mind just gets busy right away. Like, I can wake up some mornings and just have a list going. And like, then I'm so focused on that a lot of things on the outside just don't matter. And I'm so laser focused, and then something goes not according to plan, and that can just send me down a completely wrong route, and the day just gets ruined. And then you're going to bed just miserable, hoping it all changes tomorrow, but odds are it's not going to. So, there's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can do to move forward from bad starts, and we can recover from a bad start to actually having an excellent day and a very productive day.
Yeah. And for me, the older I get, I do have to really pay attention to it. When I was younger, I think things kind of rolled off my sleeve a little easier. A lot of things, like, a bad thing would happen and I'd be like, never, like, and I could just recover from it pretty easily, or, listen to some music. And I know that sounds cliche, but that's what I enjoy doing, or whatever. And I would just in 5 minutes find something funny and get into a conversation. And I'd be over it, unless it was something that I was worried about. Like, and I can really, like, ruminate over something.
Oh,
Like, if
yeah.
I'm worried about it, and that will totally derail my day. But the older I get, sometimes in the morning, like you said, that routine thing, and I'll get all kinds of irritated because I'm out of my routine, and it just makes me feel just out of sorts. And so I have to be very cognizant of it. And I have to be cognizant of the things I put into place for myself to make sure I don't get that way. So the older I get, I have to be very cognizant of good sleep. And I've talked about that on here a ton. And even sometimes, like now, if I don't get good sleep, I wake up in the morning and go, man, my day's ruined. I didn't get a good night's sleep. And I have to figure out how to recover from that, because that's just what's going on right now. But so, taking good supplements, I take magnesium now, and I take a cortisol manager. Man, I sleep so much better. I have to have good, there's a word for it, like nighttime, like etiquette, or like your bedtime etiquette. Like, screen time will screw me all up, and of course I'm not over that yet. I've got to figure that out. And like, if I read at night versus playing on my phone, I sleep better. Alcohol at night, forget it. We're not sleeping. Forget it. Just it's out. It's just, you just might as well count on, I'm going to wake up at between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m. and be awake for anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours. And then hopefully fall back asleep. This morning I did get up at 5:15 with my husband so we could get back to our health routines. And for me, that made my whole day better. I got up early. I didn't want to. I want we were just on vacation. We got back from vacation yesterday, but got up this morning and man, exercising first thing in the morning, so good. And another thing for me, and I know there's science behind this, and I just have to trust the science, but not being on your phone first thing in the morning, that blue light will I don't know, it does something, messes something up. No coffee, tried to do no coffee for and
Yeah,
I know
forget
I
about
know.
that,
I
dude.
wish people could see us on video 'cause I was like, "No way, no
No
coffee
way.
for an hour till" I drank 20 ounces of water before I eat or drink anything else just to get I don't know. Like, I have all these quirky little rituals, but they work for me. I figured out these things that work, but man, exercising in the morning, I felt great all day today. I just really did. And I think that whole sunlight first thing in the morning thing, like 10 to 15 minutes of sunlight first thing in the morning, listeners, look into that. I truly believe that is a game changer. It your hormones appreciate it, so look into that too. Yeah, I have all these quirky little things now that I do so that when the thing happens, it's gonna derail me, I'm prepared for it.
Yeah, I think the older I get and the more aware I become of some of the triggers or what's going to set you off on a bad foot, the easier it is to prepare on how to overcome those. A lot of times it's the uncertainty, the things that happen that are unprepared for, like walking in the door at work and all of a sudden you're slammed with whatever the case may be. When you talk about routine and stuff, one thing I want to hit on real quick, like music for me, I'm with you. And it's just funny, like if people heard the music I was listening to as I was pulling in the parking lot at work, they would know what kind of Kyle's showing up that day.
Yeah, yeah,
Is is it Eminem blasting? Watch out, right?
yeah,
Or is it,
yes.
something. So that's funny, but yeah, I enjoy music too. But it's like I said, I think it starts with the awareness, like why are these things happening? And then once I'm aware of it, what can I do to overcome some of those? And, some of the obstacles we can kind of have an idea, especially if you have families and kids and school and weather and all these things we could plan for. And it's that I think really the key is when we look at this is the uncertainty, like the things that just all of a sudden happen that you could have never predicted or you didn't realize was happening. And then it just shoots you in the wrong direction. So, how do we not let one bad moment define our day? And then having a reset process, like how can I or how can you effectively just kind of hit that reset button to start going in a different direction? So we start off bad. For those crazy people who don't drink coffee in the first hour, I mean, that's crazy. I could never do that. Like if I did that, how would I overcome that? I'd have to guzzle some coffee after an hour. I only drink 2 cups, right? I don't drink a whole lot, but like it's got to be right away. I don't That's crazy. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing, and I think that reset, like especially for me, when I look at myself, like sometimes that reset is hard. I think it's a lot easier for me to reset sometimes when I'm at home or in a more personal arena, but going to work sometimes, and especially if it's work that has kind of set you down that bad trail right away, it's a challenge for me to kind of hit that reset button until I can go home again. And I think that's a challenge, not just for me, but probably for a lot of us, because you're in that environment that hurt you or made you feel a certain way or got you stressed right away, and now you just got to dig deep and drive through the rest of the day, and you still got, for most people out there, you still have 7 hours and 59 minutes to figure out how to turn your day around. We have 23 hours and 59 minutes, right? Unless you get forced. But so it's just that kind of reset, that uncertainty, the things that just happen, and then how would one go about overcoming that? Like what are some good ways to kind of look past that and bounce back in a better
For me
direction?
sorry, I don't mean to
Oh,
interrupt
no,
you.
you're
So
fine.
for me, it's almost always a workout, and I'm not a crazy fitness fanatic at all. Like, I mean, I just for me, a workout almost always makes me feel better, but it's hard to get there sometimes. It's hard to make yourself do it because 'cause you're in such a funk, but a workout almost always makes me feel better, even if it's just a walk outside or being outside. A phone call to the people in your circle, I 100% recommend because sometimes and you gotta know which friend to phone. Because I can phone a friend that I know is gonna hype me up. She's gonna be like, "You were right, girl. Whose butt do I need to kick?" I hope she listens to this because 'cause she'd be like, I'm in it, girl. You were right. You even if I'm wrong, you were right. You were 100% right. It should irritate you." And she'll like, but sometimes you do need somebody to commiserate with you, right? But sometimes you need to phone a friend that's going to go, "It's not going to look this bad in 10 minutes. It's not going to look this bad tomorrow. Hey, you're overreacting, whatever it is." Or you just need somebody to listen to you and talk through things. So for me, it's a good phone call. It's being outside and it's a workout. To me too is perspective, and I've been on this kick lately, and I think I mentioned this last week. I had seen this quote somewhere, like, on a meme or something, and it has made so much sense to me about why I get so irritated with people sometimes, and I've been trying to remember it a ton lately. So and I found it, and it says, "The potential you see in other people isn't real. It is the projection of what you think you would do in their position." And so, like, for me, I so many times when I'm irritated with people, I'm like, "Why would they do that?" Like, I wouldn't have done that. And it's not just like in the fire service, there's 10 ways to do some things, like, you know, load hose on the truck and pull hose off the truck and throw ladders. There's a couple different ways. There's a couple different ways in patient care to do different things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about other like decisions people are making on day-to-day basis, like that you wouldn't do it that way. And so that's when I find I get irritated and kind of off course for myself is that I'm watching someone do something and I know it's not how I would handle it. And I know that, like, that I to me, I'm like, I know they have more potential and they could do it better if they would just do it my way. And so I have to remind myself, I'm not them, and I don't they have a different life experience than me, and they've experienced all these different things up until this point in their life about why, they're doing it the way they do, and I either A, need to not judge, or B, I need to help. So a lot of times, instead of helping, I'm judging, I'm getting frustrated with, I'm getting angry, I'm bitter, I'm all these other things where it's like, darn, if I was doing that, I just want somebody to come and help me. Like, why am I acting this way towards this person? It's because it's not how I would have done it, but I've had all these different life experiences than them, and they have had different experiences than me. So I think I'm trying to fall back on that value that I've had for so long of grace that I think the older I've gotten, like, for some reason, I've not been giving as much grace. I have just been irritable. So that for me has made a big difference. Especially in the last 2 or 3, 4 weeks, someone had told me that, I'd gotten some feedback that I seemed irritable with some of my coworkers, and I was. He was not wrong. I was. Because they were doing things not the way I would do them, and that was 100% what the reason was. I'm like, "Well, maybe I have more experience in some of these areas, and I should help them. Or maybe I have a different perspective, and I should help them, or maybe I have no experience in it, and I should shut my mouth." So, it's just yeah, perspective is everything for me.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit it. Grace and perspective, right?
Yeah.
Those are two big ones, and I think that equates to a bad start doesn't necessarily equal a bad day, but you need to have both grace and perspective on what's going on around you, and sometimes we have to give ourselves grace, and that's okay, and we have to give other people grace because we don't know what's going on with them either. So yeah, it's just this big. It's all complicated, right? These things we talk about are not easy by any stretch of the imagination. But I think one of the cool things listening to you talk is just the awareness, and I think that goes so far in so many ways when we can just initially just be aware of what's going on. Not even why yet, right? Now, don't even get there. We don't even need to get there. And especially for the young listeners, like if you can understand that you have a bad start You might not necessarily know why, but you can feel it and you know something's off, like, cool, high five yourself, give yourself some grace, and like, we'll learn how to power through. These things we don't learn in a day or overnight. It is through the course of many experiences, lived experiences, and life and what life throws at you. And if you could pick some of this stuff up the earlier you are in life and your careers and your families, like the better off you're going to be. And I think that's important for every generation. And as we get older, we pass on our mistakes and the things we've learned. And it's like the earlier we could get to some people, I think it's all for a benefit, but none of this is easy. I look at like for me, like resetting strategies, and a lot of these I kind of sometimes I don't do them, right? Because sometimes
Right?
right, it feels
Same.
better to be pissed off than
It does.
it
Yeah.
does, right? So stay pissed off. No, I used to be a lot more angry than I am now, right? And a lot more go with the flow now. Like, okay, life's gonna happen and things are gonna happen, and we just have to be able to persevere and move on. That pause and breathe. There's a lot of breathing strategies out there, but I think that we've talked about purpose a lot, and I think it's important for everybody to have kind of your general purpose in life, not just your career title, but your purpose. Like, and then just re-anchor in your purpose. What really matters today is something that you should ask yourself, even if you're gonna be in a bad mood all day because maybe you only got a few hours of sleep, or it was a busy night at work, or whatever the case. Sick kids at home, everybody's sick, you're fighting a little cold, whatever the case. Like, what really matters today in that moment? Is it to get Sometimes, hey, it might be do the bare minimum to get the job done for that day because I don't feel too good. Cool. Things like that. And then the other thing is, before we got on, we were talking about this micro wins, like the small wins, like doing
Yes.
one small thing. You don't need to complete the project. You don't need to complete the task in its entirety, but whether it's, at home, you make your bed, right? Or answer one email or take a walk, right? Normally you're very active and like working out, but you're not feeling it. Just go for a walk, right? Because momentum matters. And if we can start building that early, right, we become aware that we started the day off on the wrong foot somehow, some way, whether it was at home or when we stepped into work. You know, we started off on the wrong foot. Now we got to pause, breathe, re-anchor in our purpose, what really matters today, and then just do one small thing. Right after that, do one small thing, and then from there, maybe another one if you got it in you, and then that momentum will hopefully start pushing you in a more positive direction. And then as we build that momentum, now we start charging into, hey, maybe not the most successful day we had, maybe not the best day we had, but hey, it ended a lot better than it started. So, and Kerry, I mean, did a wonderful job talking about that perspective and that grace, right? And sometimes we have to shift that input. If I'm listening to, a bunch of feel good music, like I'm a big Drake White fan, maybe I do need to put Eminem on to get me pumped up or to release some of that anger or whatever's going on. Or sometimes we have to turn that radio off going into work, right? Just sit in silence, like listen to your thoughts, just focus and things like that, so we can reground ourselves. So I think that, that's the biggest thing when we look at purpose, and then the small wins, every step that we take during those, so we can start to try and flip the days around. I wish I would have known some of this stuff maybe 10 years ago, and it would have been a lot more beneficial to me, especially during that point in my life and young kids or, babies and work and all this stuff. It was kind of a more of a rough part of my life. Now, where I'm at now, like these bad days are more, maybe it's just as you get older. I don't know, Carrie, they could be, but it seems to me like they're few and far between, and they keep spreading out and spreading out the older I get. So, which is good. But like some of the stuff I wish I would have known a little bit younger, like, hey, we still can have a successful day. We still can, end on a positive note, and it's not just words, it's putting action behind them as well, right? We can sit here and say all these things, but it's actually putting some of these things into action to start going in a better direction.
Yeah, I love the one small win thing. Your brain has a hard time differentiating between a
Yeah.
small win and a huge win. So my most favorite, I think, life advice I ever got, and I do this religiously. Admiral McCraven at UT Austin, hook 'em horns, go Longhorns, gave a commencement speech about one small thing you could do that could change the world is to make your bed. And you mentioned that. Like, I make my bed, I would say 99% of the time, because my brain now, it has now convinced my brain that that's a win. I'm like, I've made my bed. I get, when I'm getting ready in the morning, I make my bed, I cut the TV on so I can listen to some news, but it's like the bed is made. And I like to get into a made bed at night. It doesn't feel as messy. It feels like I'm getting into like I almost feel like I had a housekeeper that morning that came and, made my bed for me, but it was me. But like it to me, it has tricked my brain into it is one win for the day. And when I start that way, it cascades into all these other wins. So it kind of keeps me ahead of the game. But if you're behind the game and you don't have any wins yet and you're off on the wrong foot and everything's going to shit, find a win. A small win, like Kyle said, a walk, like, for me this morning coming in, I've been off. We took a little vacation for my friend's 40th birthday, and we're in our really busy season in the training division right now, so I was stressed about that, and I was behind the 8 ball on some stuff that I needed to have already completed. But this morning, I knew I was stressed coming in. I cleaned my desk first. So I got everything organized on my desk. I have a whiteboard that has like weekly tasks, kind of mid-range goals, and then like long-term projections. And I did my weekly goals, even though I was off yesterday, got those straight, got my desk all clean, even though I've got 1,000 things I need to get done. Cause then I can feel like I feel organized and in a good place in my brain. And that to me was a small win. I got my desk all cleaned up, read through some emails that needed to be taken care of, got those all answered. And I'm like, man, now I feel more on top of things, and it just set me in a better mind space to accomplish, like, I need to get my budget request done, which is that we do a 2-year budget request, like, almost 3 years in advance, which is super hard to that's hard to do, and so I'm working on that, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to tackle that yet because I hate budgets. I hate it. That's my least favorite part of my job is budget stuff. Don't ever put me in charge of, like, a multi-million dollar budget. I'd be like, "Yeah, no, I just whatever." Like, but I know it's an important part of my job and it is my responsibility, so I'm very diligent about it, but I didn't wanna work on it yet, and I was dreading it coming into work. So, I got cleaned up in my office, got my board all straight because my board does make me happy. It organizes my brain. You hear me talk, this is how my brain this is what it looks like in my brain, so I got it all straight on my board and ready to roll. And I worked out this morning, so.
Yeah, I gotta say, we don't make our bed. I don't yeah, I don't, like, I get it, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't. We don't. Again, for me, it's the first thing in the morning, I need my coffee, and I gotta tell you, to all our listeners, I've had a bad run of coffee this week, and I'm waiting for some coffee to get in
Oh,
tomorrow.
man.
Yeah, it's been rough. I had to go to the store and buy some from the store. Oh. But for me, my first accomplishment is hitting that pour over and dialing in that coffee right away, you know?
And I need some help with that because I am on this run of I really want a machine of some sort. I've
No,
had this bun so, like, in
no.
all the coffee houses, we have bun commercial coffee makers. So years and
Ugh,
years ago, my husband and I bought a bun
ugh,
residential, and I'm just now realizing that it's this Folgers I drink is crap coffee,
ah,
but it's not crap, but, like,
Carrie, I don't
it's
know if we could be friends anymore.
I know. I am used to Firehouse coffee, Kyle. That's the coffee I grew up on, and so I need some, like, guidance on.
I gave you a couple of cups, right? That one, yeah,
Yes, and
yeah.
that's
That's
delicious, but I don't know how
amazing,
you
right?
made that, and I don't know what to do at my house to make and I'm the only one at my house that drinks coffee, so I don't know what to do.
Because
But anyways,
I travel with my coffee too, right? That's important.
yeah, so if you come see us, like, when we speak, Kyle brings some contraption
The
and makes
AeroPress. A
coffee.
lot of people know the AeroPress.
Oh,
Anyway, so we digress. Maybe our next
yeah,
episode, we're gonna talk about coffee the whole
coffee.
time.
Yes, because I
Bam.
think, coffee is also a cultural thing in every
Yeah,
workplace.
yeah.
It's a
I
currency.
think that's a great
Coffee is
idea.
uh-huh,
That we're gonna do it.
yeah.
That is awesome. I wanted there was something I wanted to bring up
Alright.
and talk about. I don't know, but then we went down this coffee rabbit hole, and then you got me all excited about coffee, and I just can't drink coffee later in the day, but
I
whatever.
can either.
What were you talking about?
Small things, you don't make your bed, we make our bed. Well, I make our bed. Sometimes my husband makes our bed, but I make our bed. I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, so when we look at I remember, a while ago, I mentioned like 10 years ago, I wish I would have known a lot of this, and done some of the work. And realize some of this. And I get it. Life has to happen for us to learn some lessons, regardless. Like you're going to learn lessons through lived experience. But as I've gotten older, and I think routine is good in some aspects, but I think it also destroys us in some aspects as well, because we have to get out of our comfort zone from time to time to be able to continually challenge ourselves and grow, and I think become more resilient to dramatic changes in a moment of a day. So are there things that you can do outside of your normal routine where you're able to be challenged, and uh, you know, uh, one of the things I think of and what I started doing is I'm doing guitar lessons, right? And
What?
yeah,
That's
and
amazing.
I got Mary Had a Little Lamb down. It's pretty cool. But like the purpose behind it, like, I'm not here to become a rock star, I'm not here to be join a band, if I could play, like, a four-chord song with my daughter while she sings, cool, like, that's a win. But it was more about, like, just the experience of it, of challenging myself in a different way, for multitude of reasons, right? I think, it may be aging, there's a lot of studies that say that help, but also, like, when you start facing new challenges, I think that also builds a level of resiliency in you to where you get curveball gets thrown at you during the day, you're able to adapt quicker because you're facing more new challenges. I think, as we age, we see it, right? We see it in our profession when we're running calls. The older you get, the more set in your ways you get. And like that could just be harmful to this idea of resiliency in a moment where things go bad. How do I bounce back immediately? And then, there's worse things that happen and how do I bounce back over time, right? I think those are two different things. But I think it comes down to being able to challenge ourselves regularly, not all the time. And I get some people have busy seasons and stuff and we can't go do guitar lessons and things like that. But there's, I think, a lot of benefit to that, to where we can start building a level of resiliency that prepares us for every day, even though it has nothing to do with what you do on a daily basis, right? It is just challenging that mental acuity of your brain to work in a much different way than you're used to. So my challenge to everybody out there is like, is there always this thing that you've ever always wanted to do that you've never tried, as you were a kid? Like, go do it. Go challenge yourself and don't have any expectations. Do it for the experience, for the challenge, to challenge your brain, to build a level of resiliency, to do something new and different and something that makes you uncomfortable. I think the more we are able to approach uncomfortable situations and make ourselves uncomfortable, when we get into those bad moments that are uncomfortable, we become more attuned to how to operate in that world of being uncomfortable. And I think that's where real growth can happen too. So go challenge yourself, go do something new, because who knows? Maybe I will be a rock star, right? Yeah, and you never know. You never know what doors are going to open or what that's going to bring, but at least it's going to bring a challenge to your mental capacity and help you build a level of resilience that you just don't have right now.
Yeah, you're gonna have to record our intros and outros now on your guitar.
Yeah, like I said, I met Mary Had a Little Lamb. All right.
Alright. I'll give you a few more months. But I agree, and I see this in kids too. Kids that, like, and I'll just use our own personal example, like, when my son was born, I was on shift work, my husband was on shift work, and he had to go to a sitter overnight, and he had this crazy schedule because some nights when we were on shift, he went to my mom. Some nights when we were on shift, he went to my ex's mom. Some nights he went to the sitter who just welcomed him into their family like an extra kid, and he spent the night there. But we could take him anywhere, right? And he was so adaptable to any kind of schedule change, and I think it set him up for his whole life that way.
Yeah.
And then, now he's the kiddo of divorced parents, and both parents now have different partners and different family lives in both houses, and he goes back and forth, and gosh, if I didn't worry about that and pray about that, and do I still worry about that? Yes, but, like, he's just so adaptable, and when stuff hiccups in his day, I can just see the resilience in him because he's had all of that, his routine, and we were talking. What made me think of it is we were talking about, when you're always in this routine and it gets disrupted, but if you live a life like that, and I think a lot of firefighters, nurses, doctors, police officers, anybody on shift work, you're kind of used to being a little bit out of routine, right? And so we're probably somewhat adaptable in that aspect that we don't always work an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. We're working shift work, on call, mandatory overtime, holidays, and shifting around to try and accommodate vacations. Like in our family, we're shifting around based on visitation and custody schedules and shift work and on-call schedules and my schedule, my husband's schedule, my ex-husband's schedule. It's just everyone's schedules. And that has made us adaptable in that aspect. And I can imagine folks that have always their entire lives worked a Monday through Friday, and if that gets changed, like, that's difficult, right? Because you are stuck in that, not stuck in it, but that's what you've been doing, and then you gotta fit all the other things into it. So, I think that makes shift work people adaptable in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah.
It sucks in some ways, right? But it's good in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are definitely some great points, and as this is a very it's sometimes the more we get into episodes, like the more I want to keep going, but it also sparks some new ideas and just kind of interesting on where we can go and the things we could talk about because this is I think a lot of people, most people are going to have this, if not all people, and I think my encouragement to you is if your day started off rough, don't write it off, right? These are the moments that are going to forge you. And when you choose recovery over reaction, and sometimes it's a lot easier to react than to kind of pause, hit that reset button, get your mini win, reground yourself in your purpose for that day, and just continue to drive on because we're all going to face it. You've been listening to the HC Leadership Podcast. Leadership isn't rank or title, it's how you show up. So go look in the mirror. Are you leading with purpose today? Keep reflecting, keep leading. Until next time.